And just like that, it's another morning for wisdom. So, good morning if you are joining us live today in kind of like the interim studio setup. So, we're going to jump straight into it. And 10 wisdoms in. Can you believe it? We set out for 31 weeks of wisdom, had some hiccups in between, but graciously delivering nuggets of wisdom to I think it's almost 2,000 entrepreneurs on a weekly basis. Last week we had our second Q&A. That video is up on our socials. This week, moving from stewarding finances all the way to those who cost us money, the people that work with us. Okay, I'm just kidding. Honestly, this is the biggest blessing that any entrepreneur gets to manage, and that's the people. Some call it leadership, and well, this is wisdom, and here we are. So now we've arrived at the one topic most leaders think they're good at, until reality humbles them. Money exposes discipline, but people expose who kind of like who you really are. You can fake strategy, you can bluff your way through financial conversations. You cannot fake leadership for long, because eventually the people under your care becomes a reflection of what you've built or failed to build. And that's where this gets kind of like uncomfortable, because people in our care is not a soft topic. It's not HR. It's not culture slogans on a wall. It is responsibility at the highest level. And that's what it is. And that's where it gets slightly uncomfortable, if you want to put it like that. It is at the highest level. There's a dangerous sentence I hear far too often in business. And I won't say necessarily it's a sentence that people say verbatim, but it's a sentence that people say with an attitude, or especially from a seniority point of view. It's that attitude of they are just staff. And that sentence sounds small, but it reveals something massive, because the moment people become just staff, you've already stepped out of leadership and into utilization. And utilization builds machines. It doesn't build people. Now here's the reality. Every single person you recruit or hire or lead is someone's son. It is someone's daughter, someone with potential, someone with insecurity, someone with ambition, someone with fear, someone with gifts. And a helpful pre-tip, something that is worth a mention here. I'm talking about the people in your care, or people you are about to include there. This comes with a presumption that you were diligent in the task of recruiting in the first place, and recruiting the right people and taking the right steps into recruiting them. I did a podcast on hiring better in 2026. It was not a while back. It was at the end of 2025 for 2026. And you can start there for more depth on how to choose. You can head up over to our podcast channels and just have a listen there. But now let's fast forward to those that's actually in your care. And a future that will be shaped in part by how you lead them. That's not motivational talk, that's weight. And most leaders don't feel that weight properly. They feel pressure, they feel targets, they feel deadlines, but not responsibility of people, or rather not responsibility for people. And Solomon, throughout Proverbs, keeps bringing leadership back to this central idea. People are not tools, they are entrusted. Proverbs 27 verse 23 says the following. It says, "Be sure you know the condition of your flocks, give careful attention to your herds." And that's leadership. It's not managing tasks, it's knowing people, understanding them, paying close attention, because if you don't know your people, you cannot lead them. You can only use them. So naturally, we move back to recruiting. Who you let in shapes everything. So let's start at the beginning, and that's recruitment. Because most leadership problems don't start in leadership, they start in selection. You don't fix culture problems later, you hire them in at the beginning. And this is where most businesses get kind of like lazy. They hire for skill, they hire for urgency, they hire because they need someone now. And then 6 months later, they're dealing with attitude, with misalignment, with lack of ownership, with poor communication. And they get kind of like confused. Maybe you did hire actually wrong. Often we don't want to say this out loud, that our discernment was maybe part of the problem. But pause off the maybes. Here is the definites. You hired incomplete because skill is visible, but character is revealed. And wise recruitment, or rather wise recruiting, prioritizing what is hard to fix, not what is easy to train. Because I've said it so many times, skills can be developed. Character, however, takes years. Solomon says in Proverbs 22 verse 1, it says, a good name is more desirable than great riches. Reputation, integrity, track record, that matters more than raw ability. Now let me make this a bit more practical. When you recruit, you're not looking for the best CV. You're looking for patterns. How do they speak about previous employers? Do they take ownership, or do they blame? Do they show hunger or entitlement? Do they ask thoughtful questions, or are they just trying to impress? Because interviews are not about answers. They are about patterns of thinking. And if you don't learn to read those patterns, you will hire problems. So, of course, we get part two, the hiring factor, the decision making with consequences. Recruiting gathers options, but hiring makes a decision. And decisions shape outcomes. And here's the truth. A bad hire is not neutral. It costs you time. It costs you energy. It costs you money. It costs you your culture, your momentum. And sometimes it actually costs you your best people. Because strong performers don't stay in weak environments. They leave, and they do so quietly. And they do so professionally, if I may add. And they don't always tell you why. Now, here's where leaders get it wrong. They delay hard decisions. They see the red flags early, but they hope things will improve. They try to kind of like manage around it. And what they're actually doing, and what you actually might be doing, is teaching the rest of the team what is acceptable, especially if we look at how cultures are developed. Proverbs 14 verse 7 says, stay away from a fool, for you will not find knowledge on their lips. It sounds harsh, but the principle is clear. Who you allow into your environment affects everyone else. So hiring must be very intentional. There must be clear expectations, clear standards, clear accountability, not vague, not hopeful, but clear. Because unclear expectations, they create confused employees. And confused employees create inconsistent results. Then we get to the third part, leading. And this is where most of us fail, yet most of us really, really have this internal desire, especially as an entrepreneur, to succeed. This is where we get to the real work. Leadership, leading, because hiring someone is actually easy. Leading them well, that's where most leaders fall apart. Because leadership is not about control, it's about responsibility for growth. Proverbs 16 verse 9 says, in their hearts humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps. People come with plans. They show up with the dreams and expectations. And your role as a leader is not to suppress that, it's actually to channel that. Good leaders don't just extract output, they develop capacity. Now, let's be practical again. There are three levels of leadership most people operate in. Level one is the task management leadership. Did you do the work? Level two is you get the performance managers. How well or how well did you do the work, right? How was it performed or how will it be performed? And then they get the level three leadership, which is the development. Who are you becoming while you are doing the work? Most leaders never reach level three. And that's why their teams hits a plateau. Because people don't just need instruction, they need development. They need feedback. People actually need correction. They need to be stretched. They need to be given opportunities. And here's where it gets slightly uncomfortable again. If your team is not growing, it's not their fault first. It's your fault as the leadership or as leader first, because leadership sets the environment. Number 4 is the dangers of neglecting this wisdom. Let's not kind of like sugarcoat this, right? If you get this wrong, it will cost you. Actually I actually want to say, it already maybe has already cost you. And maybe you knew it, and maybe you didn't. But it will cost you, not hypothetically, practically. You will build a team that looks busy, but produces very, very little. You will spend your time fixing problems instead of building vision. You will feel like you're carrying everything because, frankly, you are. Right? And eventually you will burn out. Or worse, you will lower your standards just to survive. And that's the real danger. Not failure, but compromise. Because once you start tolerating what you used to correct, your culture is already slipping. Solomon warns us repeatedly about this. In Proverbs 29 verse 18, he says, "Where there is no vision, the people cast off restraint." No clarity, no direction, no leadership. People drift, and drift destroys teams. But then we need to look at what it looks like when it's actually done right. So let's flip this, because when this is done well, it's powerful. You build a team that thinks, that not just executes. You build people who take ownership, who solve problems before they even reach you. You build a team who grow beyond what they started, and eventually your business stops depending entirely on you. That's the bottleneck that we want to just completely avoid, right? And that's the goal. Not control, multiplication. You are building people who can build. That's leadership. And here's the bigger picture. When you lead people well, you don't just change your business, you change families. You change future leaders. You change communities, because the way you lead someone, they will carry forward into their next role, their next team, their next season. And that's the impact that you should desire as a leader within entrepreneurship. So if I had to simplify this into something you can actually apply, it would look like this. Be slow to hire. The Bible says be slow to anger. I say when it comes to hiring, be slow to hire. Really, really take that in. But very clear when you do. Set the expectations quite early on, not after problems appear. Correct quickly, but develop consistently. Invest in people beyond their role, not just within it. And never forget this. People don't leave companies first. They leave leadership. Let me land this properly, because this is the pinnacle for a reason. You can build systems. You can build products. You can build strategies, but if you fail with people, everything eventually cracks, because business growth is not just an organic growth, right? It's a growth with people. I'll actually say the contrary. I'll actually say businesses don't grow, people do grow. And businesses follow. So the question is not, do you have a team? The question is, are you worthy of leading one? Because leadership is not a title. It is a responsibility. And the people in your care are not there by accident, or at least they should not be there by accident. They are entrusted to you for a season, to be led, to be developed, to be challenged and elevated. So lead like it matters, because it actually does, more than you think and longer than you'll ever see. So thank you once again for joining Wisdom this morning. Just as we've got a couple more minutes left, Wisdom is a 30-minute max episode live every single Tuesday on teaching the entrepreneur on how to wisely build their businesses, scaling them, being influenced by one of the richest, wisest men that has ever lived, Solomon. And it's, I won't say based on the book of Proverbs, but Proverbs really does give us that inside influence that steward us and steward our way of thinking. And it's very much more applicable today than it's ever been before. We do it live every single week. Week 1, we started with the hopes and anticipation that someone will show up. Week 2, we had this anticipation that 20 people will keep on showing up. And graciously, God has just blessed us with, I almost want to say, it's almost 2,000 entrepreneurs live every single week. Following through from this, from ExCAP side, we do have a couple of workshops coming up and a couple of techs that we launch into businesses and entrepreneurs. So if you're starting your own business and you're in that space, why don't you make sure to join our socials or get in touch with us? Following this live segments each Tuesday is our newsletter with additional resources. It's completely for free, all aimed to assist the entrepreneur, the person who's got this passion calling for leadership, for creating businesses, for owning businesses. And whether you're just starting out or very professional, we feel it's applicable for you. We feel this is a space for the entrepreneur because we feel from ExCAP side that the entrepreneur's got a massive calling on their life to be stewarded, to create businesses and create these opportunities. I just really, really want to say thank you for waking up every single Tuesday to be here. May you have a beautiful day. May you have a blessed day. And thank you once again for another week of wisdom. Up on our YouTube channel will be all the other wisdom series. We started with diligence, we had accountability, we had communication, we talked into finances. So if you want to go get some biblical blueprint finances, and from a business developer to see that in practicality, in real life, how does it pan out? We obviously have our Q&As every 4th week, answering these type of questions in your business, giving you, the collective answer to steward that in your business. All of those videos are up on our YouTube channels. Most of the resources are also available on our Spotify and Apple Podcast channel. Not Yet Mature is our music, our studio channel. With that, go check that out. But if you're ever confused, the links are in our bios, or just DM us. I tend to reach back to every single DM I get throughout the week. But let's go. It's a short week, and wish you guys all the best, and keep well. Cheers.